Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Guest Life Podcast. We are at episode 50. Dun, dun, dun. Huge news. Dan Guest is the guest on the Guest Life Podcast today. So let's hear a little bit about Daniel, because this is our opportunity to really do a deep dive and learn about him. Daniel Guest is an award-winning entrepreneur, recognized for his business achievements and extensive contributions to the community. Daniel launched his business, Guest Plumbing and Heating, just 2 years after graduating in his mid-20s. By 2018 and 2019, his business had become one of the fastest growing companies in Hamilton, Ontario, which ultimately led to him launching a separate company, Guest Heating and Air Conditioning. Now, together, the two companies offer 24-hour service in the residential and small commercial sectors, along with high-end design build services. Now, giving back to the community is a cornerstone of Daniel's business. He supports numerous organizations tackling issues related to domestic violence, hunger, and even cancer research. His mission to become the largest philanthropist in his community is embedded in his company's vision statement. Daniel also dedicates his time to supporting Mohawk apprenticeship and co-op students and volunteering his time to the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program. Now, Daniel has won many business awards, and we'll get into all of that coming up. These days, you can find Daniel connecting with local entrepreneurs right here on the Guest Life Podcast. Dan Guest, how you feeling?
That was uncomfortable, but I'm good. I'm here. This chair is as comfortable as everybody says
Good.
it is.
Yes,
yeah.
they are.
So, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Yay. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Jacqueline Harper. For anyone wondering, I own Harper Designs in Burlington, Ontario. We help busy professionals transform their homes into ones they love, which is why this is such a great, collaboration. I also work with your sister.
Yep.
She's one of my longest childhood friends, so we have known each other for a long time.
Long time.
Yes. Okay. So I want you to go way back for a minute and tell us a little bit about what it was like starting your company.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'd love to thank you for hosting the show. It's been in the back of our mind for a while of how to do episode 50, and a lot of people are asking, how I got started and what I've got going on. And being on a couple other podcasts, it's been a great opportunity to share our story and my story personally. But we have a lot of people asking, so here it is.
Was it just you starting the company? Did you have someone that you started with?
Yeah, so it all started. Started my career at started my career as a farm boy, working as a co-op student for Charlie Firth here in Ancaster. A good friend of mine was a plumber. Jeff Edworthy worked for a guy named Larry. He's literally Larry the plumber, which is just classic. So, out of high school, I was pretty lost but motivated. So didn't know what I was going to do. Everybody in our family is very university focused, university bound. So me being a little bit of the black sheep, not knowing where to go, it put a lot of pressure on myself, but also I just knew I was going to do well. Always had jobs. I used to say I was a gas transfer engineer, which is just me pumping gas as the pioneer on them for James. But
creative.
It was great. My mom used to drop me off, and then I'd get our car wash, and that was after me working at Pizza Hut. But we'll kind of fast forward a little bit, and I did a co-op program in high school with and got into plumbing that way, which was great. So started in a residential company, ended up working at Matina Mechanical, which was just an amazing firm, and really learned that plumbing was not just toilets and sinks. Mm-hmm. So Matina Mechanical is a company out of Stony Creek that does hospitals, schools, did projects at Mohawk College, projects at McMaster. The Hamilton Education Center was one of the projects I finished up my career at. And just such a great place to work at scale. One of the questions I always ask people is, how do they get water to the top of the CN Tower? Well, that's plumbing, right? And then it's like, how does shit get down? And that's plumbing too, right? Because you wouldn't want to drop that off the side of the CN Tower. Someone would die.
No kidding. But, so that's why you got into this.
Yeah. Long story short, but we always say long story long. So I looked at it as who are my mentors, and one of my mentors was a guy named Leo Pernice within Matina Mechanical, and I was like, okay, so he was 32 and I was 21 at the time. For Matina Mechanical, I understood the apprenticeship program pretty quickly. So how it works is it's 9,000 hours to become a plumbing apprentice, but it's 9,000 hours. If you work more than 44 hours a week, you don't actually have to take 5 years to do your apprenticeship.
Oh.
Yeah. So
how long did it take you?
about 4.
Amazing.
So I was the youngest plumber in the company to get a license. So I was 21 when I got my license, which for anybody in the industry understands it's a pretty incredible feat. But it was almost like I had a cheat code. I just was like, I was so driven by finances, and I always said money created freedom. I think I dumped my first 6 years of salaries into just cars and insurance and rims at the time.
Yep.
And then kind of it stemmed off to, okay, well, how do I get into real estate? So I had a good friend of mine, Jordan Fortino at the time, I was living at home and working as a licensed plumber at 21. I was making great money and I wasn't saving a penny. And he actually, he owns a painting company called Fortino's Umbrella, Fortino Umbrella. But he also taught personal finance at McMaster.
Whoa.
Super
That's
interesting.
a big job,
Super interesting guy that owns a painting company. But he taught me how to save. And he was like, you need to buy a house. You need to stop, spending all your money. And it just was like an aha moment for me. And it really hit me really quick. So all of a sudden, doubled down, saved a bunch of money in the first year, was able to buy a property on the East Mountain as my first property. And my mentor at the time in business was a guy named Leo Pernice, and he had rental properties. So to kind of get back, he was about 32 and I was about 22.
And at this point, you're still in school or doing your apprenticeship?
No, I'm a licensed plumber now.
Okay, yes. All right.
So I looked at it and I said, well, he was successful. He's, starting a family, seemed pretty happy. Mm-hmm. He had a bunch of rental properties. And I was like, okay, so I just thought my mission would be, I don't want to own a business because I always looked at that as first one in, last one out, underappreciated, and that's what I saw. Obviously, you don't know what's behind closed doors, but that's what I saw, and I was like, I don't want that. So I was like, you know what? I'll just get into the real estate game. I'm making good money. I'll invest in real estate. I'll start the rentals. So I did every single one of my friends, I have to thank, but we did a basement and a main floor renovation at my house on Fennel, and then created that rental market. And I think within probably about 6 to 8 months, I was doing so many side jobs that I had the opportunity to go, a friend of mine that I did work for, Steve Kolakowski, on King William Street, where the French is. Mm-hmm. So he opened up, he had that before the French was the French. And so there's a building in the middle of the French, and I think it's now called Undefined, and then Berkeley North. So there's a tower there, it's 6 stories. And we were standing in the hole and he goes, oh man, Dan, this is my next project. It'd be really great if you plumbed it. And he's like, this would be a great opportunity for you to start your business.
That's huge. Going from residential to something like that.
Yeah. So I came from the commercial space, so he was confident I could do it.
Okay.
I wasn't confident that I could,
tackle that. Was it you yourself or you and your friends? It was just you yourself?
No, just me, yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah,
okay.
So we probably had about 3 or 4 conversations, and then I had a bad day at work. Everybody has that, like, what was the time you made the decision? So I just said no, it's not for me. I loved where I was working. And then I had a bad day at work, and I remember, I'll never forget it, but I was 23 running. Pretty much what I would do is I would run the end of the jobs for people. And so you'd have a main foreman that would run the project up until a certain point, and then I was kind of his junior right hand. I'd run to the job right to the finish, do all the deficiencies. And I remember I'd have to instruct some older gentlemen what to do for the day. I was in charge.
Wow.
It's not that I was smarter or better, but it was just someone needed to take a leadership role. So at 23, I was able to do that. I was also given the opportunity. But it comes from work ethic. And I just remember, every morning, I had one guy that was working under me, and he would come in, wouldn't say a word, and he would sigh. And I'll never forget, just like he was looking for a response. And I just remember being like, if I had my own company, I would not hire anyone that didn't want to be here. Like life is about choices. And so from that point, I was like, you know what? Screw this. I don't want to do this anymore. I can't control the people that work under me. So I said, screw it. And in my mind, I was like, if I can make $1,000 a week and get my time back, I'll just be a one-man show and I'll still do my real estate. So in the back of my head, I had none of this was a plan. And that was when it was like, okay. And I did that building. Steve was amazing. And got to meet so many people that are still very involved in our business and my life personally. But it was like this big leap. And I remember, okay, so if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And I remember vividly remembering or thinking, what am I going to call it? What is this? So, my mom's maiden name is Eisenberg. So I was always like, well, I'm going to call it Guest, but is that kind of a cop-out, right? Everyone calls their company by their last name.
Right.
I was like, well, but, Guest is great, right? Like, it's a good last name for a plumbing company.
It's strong.
Yeah, it's strong. And then I make the joke, I was like, I wouldn't have called it Eisenberg Plumbing, right? I don't think that would have worked. So we called it Guest, and then I was like, okay, what's next? Well, we need a logo. And I kept thinking, okay, what are we going to do? We don't want to call it like, Ancaster Plumbing with no logo, because you get pigeonholed and you don't know where the business will end up. So I remember focusing on, okay, we did all our brand guidelines based on Apple. So I was asked the question, what is Apple? Apple's a marketing company, Apple's a music company, Apple's a phone company, computer company. And so with Guest, it was always, we can always drop the plumbing and heating.
Ooh.
So it was always in the plan. And it's funny, but 6 years later when we opened Guest Heating and Air Conditioning, the plan came true.
Totally.
Yeah. So it was really cool to kind of, take that time at the beginning and be pretty methodical.
Yes. And be really sure about what you were putting out there.
Yeah.
So that you were able to pivot later. Yeah.
But at 23, what we found was a lot of people, oh, look at this kid branding. And I remember the first day I got myself and a couple of the guys that we had hired shirts. And they were like, comfortable white T-shirts with, the big blue leaf.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, look at this guy with all his, labeled branded clothing. And then all of a sudden you find it was because it was so changed. Like everyone was like, oh, what's this guy doing? And then, a couple months later, everyone on site, all the companies started buying their guys' T-shirts, right? And it was just an interesting time. And at 23, yes, I knew a lot because I started very young. But I bought my first house, bought my first new truck. I'll never forget that. And then started the business. And all in this time, my family thought I was crazy.
Huge milestones, all by 23.
Yeah, it was wild.
Young.
It's super crazy. And I remember the most depressing day I had was when I was driving to Niagara Falls to do a custom house, and my ladder fell out of the tailgate of the truck onto the highway. And I just saw this big flash of orange. And it was the day that I made the decision to buy. I had to get a van. But I couldn't afford the truck and the van.
Oh, so you had to lose your truck? Those are some big decisions.
Huge, right? And
okay, so wait, backtrack for 1 second. Because so here you are doing this commercial space by yourself. You're meeting a bunch of great people in the industry. How did you start growing your team?
Yeah, no, that's great. It's tough at the beginning.
It was just you by yourself for a while?
Yeah, me, and then you'd hire an apprentice or a helper at times, and then people you'd know. And Matina was a pretty big firm, so there was a couple guys that got laid off when it was a little bit slower, so I tried to bring them on. And it's challenging, right? I asked the question a lot, would you work for you? Right? So at the beginning of a career, you end up getting, I would say, less than favorable staff for the most part. I'm not saying that the staff aren't great, but you're not getting top of line people. So you got to overmanage them. So, the early days were great because I was on site all the time. I was having a blast, but then you learn that, it's not sustainable and you really don't have a life. I was learning business.
Yeah, you were doing it all.
Yeah, quoting at night. We had we had a girl coming to my house working in my 3rd bedroom. So we had like 4, I remember we got up to about 4 trucks on my side street before, bylaws started coming by and giving tickets.
You're not allowed to do this.
Yeah, you can't run a commercial operation out of a house on Fennel.
Well, the truth is you were growing so fast.
Yeah.
So from 2018 to 2019, you were one of the fastest growing companies in all of Hamilton. That's huge.
Yeah, it's really amazing to be recognized for that. A big milestone was really when we said, how big are we going to get? So it kind of switched. I'm not sure exactly when the time was over the years, but we found, or at least I found, it was always this one and we're good. This truck and we're good. We're not going to grow anymore. This truck and we're good. Not going to grow anymore. And I remember the 5th truck, I used to always have to go to my cousin Tyler. He worked at Ford and he'd sell me all my vans. And their credit department would just like hysterically laugh at me because I was so I didn't have any credit, right? Obviously a new business, new corporation. So they're like, you're never going to get approved for this. I was like, I'll personally guarantee anything. And they had this sweet little old lady who used to do the credit checks. And she's like, this isn't going to get approved. I go, just put the form through, please. And it would always come back approved because I didn't miss a payment. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was like comical. I'd be like, another one? And like the whole Ford store would know that I was coming in because my cousin's there. But also, I think we were buying like at pretty rapid speeds with I think it was like, 2 or 3 a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And okay, so let's position ourselves at 2019, okay? You're growing. How many people are working for you at that point in time before you're starting your new company?
Yeah, so pre-COVID, we got up to, it was a lot. We had, pre-COVID is kind of like the biggest hurdle. So we had 22 plumbers on staff at the time, which is still more than we have today. And we probably had 6 in the office. So yeah, we're 28 staff.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was big, and it's just like any business. We were growing way too quick, hitting a ton of hurdles, not established. Process and procedures weren't in place. Just kind of like the branding was working. I knew a lot of people. We were everywhere, and it was going well. And then COVID hit, and it was like, okay, well, everyone goes, oh, well, you're essential. But the work that we were doing was kind of in between residential and commercial. It was, mid-rise stuff. We had a couple buildings that we had done, and then a lot of office fit-outs. So an office fit-out during COVID was not essential. So everyone goes, oh, you're essential. You're an essential service. I go, yeah, how many people are you letting into your home? And then the commercial project shut down. So we went from 22 plumbers to 4.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And so speaking of COVID, was there anything that happened that you had changed your business that has stuck because of COVID? Like, did you start doing anything virtual?
Yeah, tons. Like, virtual meetings for sure. I have a lot more coffee meetings now. But what we found, you can look at anything and you could say, it's happening for us or to us. So when COVID first happened, I felt very entitled, very frustrated, very depressed. I'm sure everybody did. It's a very challenging time. And I remember one of my best friends, Shane, he had a gym that I was working for him at the time, and he had a gym in his office. And I remember I was like I'm a very routine person. Gym in the morning, get to the office, see the team, and kind of continue on my day. And when I lost, and also I don't watch the news. So all of a sudden, because of all the restrictions, it was, okay, I got to be up on what's going on, so I got to watch the news. And after 2 weeks of not going to the gym and watching the news, I just was like, okay, what am I doing differently? I'm a positive person. I have a great mindset. Why do I feel like this? I feel lost, and all my core values got like thrown out the window.
Because you're such a routine person that it was just your whole world was flipped upside down.
Yeah, and positive too, right? I was always, all of a sudden the glass was half empty.
Yeah.
It was not half full. And it was super tough.
So what'd you do? What got you through that?
I woke up on one Sunday morning and said, nope. And called Shane, super embarrassed, but I was like, I bet 100 people have asked you, but can I work out at your gym? And so we started working out together in the mornings, and it was, it was a personal gym, so it was allowed. And then I stopped watching the news. So, it was challenging at the time because people would come to me and ask, well, what's going on? And I say, well, we'll all find out at the same time, right? I'll let my accountants know when I know. And I stopped feeling entitled. And I just said, it's not the government's fault. It's not anybody's fault. I'm just going to deal with it. No one's coming to save us. So let's save ourselves. And, it's just so grateful for the team that we have here. Everybody works so hard. It was such a challenging time to manage emotions and personal situations and health. We had some really hard decisions. It was the first time I had to let anybody go, which was super, super challenging because we had such a great team at the time. And we just pivoted and we said, okay, how do we keep this thing going? And so, we made a decision to speed things up. I actually tried a partnership with an HVAC firm that didn't go well. It was interesting, kind of the next stage of, I always call this the next stage of business.
I'm so happy you're sharing this. A lot of people don't get down to the nitty gritty of that, but this is what business is.
Yeah.
You try things out, it's going to work or it's not.
Totally.
So tell us a little bit more about that. That's super interesting.
Yeah, no one really knows about that. Like, it was behind the scenes. So we used to subcontract on a lot of work. And, a good friend of mine had an HVAC firm and he was a little bit older. And we were thinking, you know what? Let's come together on a partnership. And, looking back, it was so great that we didn't end up becoming partners. We're, still friends. And it's so important in industry to always keep your friends, together and supported. But one of the things I say is if you've got a business that, one of the things that would have worked well is that we did different things. So the challenge is I'm not an HVAC technician. So having, someone that knew how to quote the projects, knew how to work, I always thought, who's going to work for me if I don't know how to do it? So when we started the partnership, we thought, okay, this could be a good kind of yin and yang. I always make the statement that, if two people do the same thing in business and they're in for partnership, they're just two people that need a hug.
I like it.
Yeah, if you don't have a different skill set and you don't...
Yeah, how are you helping each other out?
Yeah, you're just scared to do it by yourself, which is fine. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But COVID really taught me that I am special. I do have, a unique ability. And, I'm proud to say that. I'm just very, proud of all the business owners and, people to get through COVID, sure. But, no one asked me how I was doing.
Through COVID?
Nobody.
Business-wise?
Just in general.
Wow.
It's what are you doing, but not how are you doing.
I see.
And, it's a big change, right? It's what are we going to do? How are we going to get this done?
Yeah.
And you're so controlling about how everybody else is doing. And no one's like, hey, Dan, how you doing? You keeping up okay? Keeping the lights on? No one really asked. And maybe that's a harsh comment, but at the end of the day, it's... you got to look out for yourself at the end of the day, but also you have to, what I learned in that is you have to ask for help. No one can anticipate that you're struggling.
Right. Unless you tell them.
Yeah. If you're not going to communicate, you can't feel entitled.
Yeah, you got to advocate for yourself for sure.
100%.
No one else can read your mind. That goes for everything, like relationships in your life, business partners, right? No one can read your mind.
Communication's key. And being able to have a great network around me. I was so grateful for my friends and my especially my close business friends. We'd have good laughs and good cries together and just this is crazy. I remember Shane, anytime I'd have a bad day, I'd call him and he'd be having a worse day and we'd just start laughing at each other.
Makes you feel better about yourself.
Yeah. Now we share both. We share good and bad. But that I find that to be really interesting when you think you gotta have suffer alone, but if you just talked about it, you'd realize that everybody has those opportunities. I heard a really good statement once, and it's from a guy. He heard it from his mom. I forget what podcast it was, but. If you go into a room and everybody threw their problems on the table, you'd probably take yours back pretty quick.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's a good perspective for sure.
Yeah, and it's, everyone's got problems.
Yeah.
Everyone's a little messed up.
Yeah.
So just understand that it's normal. And if you talk about it, it makes it a lot more normal.
I'm so excited to announce that the Guest Life podcast is brought to you by Jobber. Jobber is a field service software that I use daily to make my business run better and more efficiently. From quoting a job to the minute you get paid, Jobber's software makes it seamless to go from start to finish and make sure that everybody has all the things they need to make sure the job's done right and you're paid faster. Jobber software is the best home service software that helped us scale and take our business to the next level. Check out the link in our bio for a free 14-day trial and 20% off your first 6 months. Thanks and enjoy the show.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting through the problem of, the COVID era where everyone was kind of stuck at home, it really changed your business. But look at you now. We want to hear about how'd you get here? Because right now your business is flourishing and we're going to talk about, where you're at.
Yeah.
So how'd you get there?
Well, after the partnership didn't work, I really sat down and said, well, I'm doing this. Told too many people about it. I actually started the corporation already, so I had to undo all the legal docs, which was just it was a challenge, but it just felt like second nature almost.
Were you guys still on good terms?
Great terms.
Agreed mutually this wasn't going to work?
Yeah, great terms. Yeah, it's still a good friend of mine.
Okay.
So it was okay, so how do I build this team? Mm-hmm. And when you put all your eggs into a basket, which would be a person, obviously your first hire. So we hired a gentleman named Tyler. He runs our HVAC team. It's all about people. And this guy just came in, built it up with the rest of our team. And I always say there's 2 levels of mentor that really stick out to me. The first level, especially in business and for anybody in the trades, I shouldn't say just the trades, but the trades specifically, just to connect. The owner-operator life, where you're doing everything. I had a lot of mentors say, it's amazing that you got into business, and they were super supportive, and they saw me growing, and they would say, oh, don't get too big. I tried it. It didn't work. People suck. Staff will steal. You've got to keep your eye on the prize all the time. It's not worth it. It didn't work for me.
But that's someone who it didn't work out for, right?
Exactly.
And maybe that's a mindset thing.
Exactly. And then, again, I don't know really where I got the whole drive from. I think a lot of it comes in with podcasting. But the next level mentor, the characteristic was our team is everything. So it's us and we, not I, and me. And they would be, our team is fantastic. Oh, they'll take care of it for you. Giving opportunities, people, succession plans, and really getting into what does culture mean in terms of how do we support more people? How do we grow? How do we take those next steps? More minds, more ideas, the better. And I just really gravitated to that. And I looked at it, okay, so what does every big corporation do? Got a huge team, there's leaders, there's people involved, there's different layers. And I was like, okay, I can do this. But you never wanted that. No, not at all.
Crazy.
Yeah. And as soon as my mind shifted to really, what is my passion? Because it went from plumbing to people. And that's the big shift. As soon as you put your focus off of the task and you put it on the people doing the task and how to enhance clients and how to it's all the suppliers are out to get me. The suppliers are your partners. And I just it hit me so hard and I just dove right into it. And I think that's what, that's where my passion stems from now. And now when people talk about your growth and it's, we have the best team. Our team's going to handle it.
Yeah, that's your mindset shift,
together.
Right?
Huge.
Because ultimately you are serving the people. You are helping your people.
Yeah. It's a life of service. And as soon as you understand that, giving is much better than receiving. Just like it was hard to listen to you talk nicely about me at the beginning of the podcast. But yeah, I find that it's really just that shift. And then it's now it's okay, what are we capable of? What are we going to do?
Okay, I want to make you uncomfortable for one more second because there's a lot of awards that I did not get to mention.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're going to recap. In 2020, You were the recipient of, I don't know how to pronounce this properly, but the Kevin McIntosh, is that right?
Yeah, Macintosh, yeah.
Okay, it's Macintosh Memorial Award. That was for community involvement. You've also received the 2021 Mohawk College Alumni of Distinction Award in the apprenticeship category. It's huge.
Thank you.
The Hamilton Chamber of Commerce also recognized him as a young entrepreneur in 2017 and one of 3 finalists in the mid-sized business category of the Outstanding Business Achievement Awards in 2023. Those are some big awards, Daniel.
Yeah, and you see that's what team's all about, right? Without the team, without the people, but also without our clients, without our staff, without the community, it's massive. And a lot of we go to a lot of, and attend a lot of awards and different organizations. Like the Chamber of Commerce has been huge. The WHBA has been massive. And it's like you're building these relationships. I always say, people say it's lonely at the top, or in entrepreneurship it's a one-man road. It's like, yeah, if you keep the door shut. It's like, if you sit in a room by yourself, it's gonna get lonely.
If you don't talk about it, if you don't share your feelings, you're gonna be lonely.
As soon as I switched to being open and vulnerable and asking the hard questions, we made a huge decision in our business where it's not, how was your day? How was the weekend? It's, what was the best part of your day?
Yeah, I love that.
What are you most excited about? What's your biggest challenge?
You really
right now?
care. And you know what? There's another way that you really show how you care is by all your community involvement. Mm-hmm. You do so much for the community. So I know for one, there's a huge annual charity event that you host. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So we try to do things, we say anything in the community, you have to understand what the end user is. So as a business owner, I'm sure a lot of you guys listening are going to talk about, you always ask for just finances. You're always asked for finances. And I said, well, what kind of vehicle can we create so that it's not just finances? Sometimes it's just time or things. So we do a semi-annual or biannually coat drive, because only people have so many coats. So we kind of hit our network. So every 2 years we do our coat drive, and we try to do 3 to 4, internal charity events a year. So we always do a back to school drive, which is just amazing. The Eva Rothwell Center downtown is a fully non-for-profit, which they give back directly to the central Hamilton and surrounding areas, which is just, you go down there and you see the volunteers, and it's like volunteer based and volunteer run. And it just puts such a smile on your face when you see all the people, the Salvation Army, the YWCA, the YMCA, all these organizations working so hard within the community, city kids, sick kids, MAC kids. Like, there's so many organizations. When you think about what we can do as business owners and community leaders, there's 2 different things, right? Like, it's not always financial, right? Everybody knows that grows a business, it's not just profit from the beginning. There's a lot of investment. Yeah. So when I was getting kind of, pigeoned on always asked for money, I said, okay, well, I always get sucked in and say yes. So why don't I say, listen, we have a budget, and it's going to things that we care about. Because there's so many organizations. But
also you can just invest your time, right? Exactly. It doesn't have to be money. And you do put a lot of time and effort into those things, which is nice.
Yeah, one of our best events was definitely our beach cleanup. We had a huge turnout, and it was a rainy, windy day, but we had like 25 bags of garbage picked up from the Hamilton beach, it was amazing. And it was a great day.
And I think doing things like that also kind of helps you change your mindset, have a little bit more gratitude for what you're doing. And it really builds relationships with your team.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, we don't, I remember feeling kind of, like, should I just be doing this in silence? That was one of the thoughts I had. Should we as a business just do these things, not post it on social media, not share it?
Because you don't want to boast that, look, we're doing this charity event just because.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a tough time. It was a little bit of a mental hurdle at the time. And I remember it was, you manifest things into the universe and they come at the perfect times. But I was listening to a podcast, and Gary Vee was talking exactly on the topic. And he said, if the worst thing you can do is get business because you're giving back, so you have bigger things to worry about.
Yeah.
And it was just such a great timing for it, because at the end of the day, it was like, yeah, you know what? I feel great about this. This feels good. It's not coming from a malicious place, and it's not coming from like 100% of our proceeds go directly to the community.
And ultimately, you're spreading the word for those events.
And you know what? It's been amazing because we inspire others. Like a lot of people that I know that own businesses now are doing, a good friend of mine, Mike from BDC, just did March Padness, which is, collecting feminine hygiene products and giving it back. Yeah, it was amazing. So being like a little bit of an inspiration to different people in different organizations to give back and maybe spark something internally in their business, which is, for me, it's just amazing, and it's just better for the community.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so not only are you doing charitable things and you're running a business, you also have a ton of friends. You've got a puppy, a girlfriend, all these things. How the heck do you balance everything?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I heard a really good thing actually on our podcast, and it was it's a pendulum.
Okay.
And I think having people and communicating properly in terms of what you're looking for and who you are. I always say, like, the best thing about my girlfriend Jen is that she sees me. She knows when I say I'm going to be home at 9, it doesn't mean 9. It means
She knows you.
It means 12. But when I said I was coming home at 9, I thought it meant 9. But yeah, it's not about balance. It's about, saying what is my passion and what is my purpose, and also being like true to yourself in the sense of what fills your cup up. And being an extrovert, if anybody knows me, which a lot of you do, I'm an extrovert, and my cup is filled all the time. And why? Because I make decisions based on what I want to do and how I want to do them. And I think getting over the hurdle of being embarrassed for like kind of getting over the imposter syndrome and doing that positive self-talk. So I have a coach, his name's Craig Spears. He's my performance coach. He's just an incredible guy. He's really taught me a lot about boundaries versus rules when it comes to relationships, how to communicate. Some big takeaways from him are surrender the result. And surrendering the result, it comes in so many different ways, whether it's being honest with somebody, telling them how you feel. You go into that situation, you surrender the result.
So like you're not worried about the result. You're just in the moment, present moment.
Yeah, you'll deal with it. Our minds go to the, and I'm speaking like I'm a therapist, but I'm learning from Craig. So shout out to Craig. Our minds always go to the worst place.
Yeah.
And they're always holding us back. And so in business and in personal life, my mind was always holding me back. I'm not good enough. Why is this, why would I do that? How could I have so many staff? If I tell people this is what I'm doing, they're going to think I'm silly, or they're just going to say I'm bragging. So there's a lot of quotes that I live by. One of them is, if you feel like you're bragging, you're talking to the wrong people.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. There's so many good takeaways.
Yeah.
I think for anyone watching, we should have pre-warned them to like have a pen and paper.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of them, right? And like, so surrender the result's huge. It's been a massive part of my life. Boundaries over rules when you're talking about, yourself, set boundaries for yourself, what's important. And I think also, like, as you grow and we get older with friendships, I got a lot of dads that are buddies of mine, and if you want to hang out with them, you go around their dad schedule. And if you respect that, you actually get a ton of time with them.
Yeah.
It's great. So, I've got some buddies, Zoran is after 8:30. He always puts his daughters to bed, right? Kevin is, before the kids get back to school. We got a group of guys that ride bicycles, and we call ourselves Guys with Thighs. So we do Saturday morning rides, right?
Awesome.
And, being able to kind of adapt as we get older to like new ideas, I think is super powerful.
Yay. Okay, well, I am getting the cue, but last thing that you want to say to everyone listening today.
Yeah, just, it's been nice to share a little bit about my story. Jacqueline's been awesome. I think, at the end of the day, what's to come is a big, it's a big hurdle. I think that, at the end of the day, you want to ask the question, why is something off limits? Unless you're being rude or malicious, don't do those things. But ask those hard questions because you'll never realize that the answer is way better than you think it is. And building those relationships based on opening up. And sometimes, any of my dear friends know me, I'm the first to open up. So if you showcase vulnerability and you know that someone's not going to get attacked for saying they're having a tough time or telling you about their big goals or explaining about, why they're doing certain things, or especially in business, understanding context, right?
It opens up more conversation and respect.
Of course. What are you doing in sales this year? It's none of your business. Why?
Yeah.
Why do you give the person context? If that person's going to go and take it and tell a bunch of people, who cares? What does it matter? Are you selling your business? Maybe in some circumstances, yes, but in my circumstances, no. And it's changed a lot for me, but also the knowledge, right? Be a lifetime learner. And that's or lifetime student, whatever you want to say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess if people haven't heard the news, do you want to share about something big that's going on for you guys?
Yeah. So we just launched our second location. Again, kind of setting those limiting beliefs. And so we're going to Toronto.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Super excited. Thank you so much. We hired our first staff the other day.
Wow.
We're hiring our managers first and then start with the field staff. So yeah, second location, you think about when I started the business and now how we are growing it as a team. There's a lot of key factors there that are really changing the dynamic of like, why not me? Why not now? And let's get some shit done. But it's all about people. And again, changing my focus from product to people in terms of my passion has been a huge eye opener in terms of what's capable. And don't let those limiting beliefs kind of hold you back.
Dan, wow. Well, thank you so much for having me today. Congrats again. Episode 50, huge. I'm so proud of you.
Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah. And like Daniel always says, why not me? Why not now? Have a good day, guys.
Thanks. Awesome. That was perfect.
Yay!